Hi, and thanks for watching this video. Something a little bit different from my normal topics, but I was looking through my old magazines and I saw this one from April 2003, which is the 25th birthday issue of Personal Computer World. I remember buying PCW back in the day, so I would have been about 13, not yet 14 for sure. So late 1983 or somewhere around early 1984. And I always enjoyed Personal Computer World because it was a bit of access to the wider industry of microcomputing, personal computers, and just the IT industry in general, beyond my small computer that I had at home and what we used at school. So I found it very interesting to see what was going on. So this is, as I say, published in 2003, but it goes back 25 years, back to 1978, and highlights some of the issues that they'd published. Um, so let's go into this bit tatty, but this is my actual own one. There's a bit of water damage and whatnot from when I didn't look after these things properly, but now it's kept somewhere safe. It's interesting that, by the way, just as you might not be able to read this very well, but even back in 2003, you could buy 1.8 gigahertz Pentium 4 CPUs. So we were already into, the high gigahertz range, not even just 1 gigahertz, but almost 2 gigahertz, for around about £560 or thereabouts. Um, so yeah, that's surprising, isn't it? There's a 2 gigahertz machine here. Um, so yeah, it was possible to get 2 gigahertz, and when I think that my laptop that I use today, an Intel i5, is probably only running, I don't know, sort of in the 2 gigahertz region. It's interesting that the clock speed hasn't gone up vastly compared to other things, such as the amount of memory that you could expect. So this is a high-end machine, but it's got 256 megabytes, and not gigabytes, but megabytes, a quarter of a gigabyte of RAM, and a 40 gig hard drive. So yeah, CPU speeds haven't gone up. CPU efficiency clearly has changed a lot, but yeah, I thought that was interesting. Anyway, the reason is not really looking at PCs, but looking at the world of microcomputers, so we can spot some of these, the pictures of some of these things. I think I need to go to page 52, so I'm not going to go through every page, but let's get to 52 and look at some of the computers which were available. These are interesting ads. I remember some of these manufacturers from back in the day, PC manufacturers. So let's go to page 52. Here we go. So I think this is interesting because this is one of the first issues. I think it might be the first issue, but I remember the pictures. So I remember this one with the chimpanzee and the ZX Spectrum. I remember this one with Zaphod Beeblebrox, and I remember the Samurai there, the MSX issue. So the covers are kind of like memorable for me because I remember seeing them on the shelves. I think I do. I don't know how much of this is received memory because I've been looking at old archives of these things over the years. But let's just go through, because otherwise the video is going to get way too long. Let's go through a couple of what's going on here. So 25 years, and started in 1978. And of course, the Apple II was around at the time. You can see that there is a Commodore PET being shown here. Intel's first 16-bit chip under the spotlight, based on the 8080. And then what did it say? Powers the Altair. The 8086, here we go. Created by two engineers in just 3 weeks, apparently. Major difference is the 88 between the 8086. The latter is the first of Intel's 16-bit CPUs. Yeah, interesting. So here is in 1978, the announcement of the 8086, the legacy of which we still live with to this day. Essentially, my Intel i5 that I have in my PC today can run natively at the machine code level code that was written for the 8086 in theory. That's incredible, really, to think that in 2026 we can still just run a binary that was built for a processor in 1978. VisiCalc, well, that's the start of everything, isn't it? Um, Professional use for microcomputers, doing spreadsheets. I actually remember when I first heard about spreadsheets, I think it was Lotus or something back in the 80s, as a kid thinking, sounds really boring, can't see the point of that. And now I'm an Excel addict, not by choice, it's by necessity. Then let's go to 1980. And of course, the iconic ZX80 in the UK. But also, even though they came out in 79, it's showing in 1980 here, the Atari 400, I think the 800 also came out at a similar time. I don't see the Atari on the previous page. And then very quickly, you see the advancements, because Sinclair go from ZX80, very, very basic, to quite a lot improved actually by 1981, the ZX81. That's interesting because it's 12 months development, and it's very innovative, very fast moving. And of course, in 1981 as well, we start seeing the starting point of the BBC Micro, which in the UK is a huge deal, used in every school, and has a huge legacy. Games like Elite that were written for the BBC Micro first are game changers, quite literally, in the world of computer gaming. And then, of course, there's nothing more revolutionary than the ZX Spectrum. It's quite UK focused, this magazine, but the Speccy was just an incredible value for money computer. Despite that, I didn't know anything about computers in 1982, so this kind of passed me by. It wasn't until somewhere around 83 that I got aware of the world of microcomputers and started wanting one. But of course, this is the start of the UK games industry, I would say. This really is a catalyst for that. So let's keep going. Then 1983, the Apple Lisa, hugely expensive, not very accessible, but the shape of things to come, right? There is, I remember playing this on my Oric, which is not Lord of the Rings, if only, The Hobbit. The Hobbit by Melbourne House, the adventure game. Never got anywhere near completing that. Crazy hard for me, even though I liked adventure games. But the GUI thing, this was really like pointing the way, quite literally, and metaphorically, to the future. And then, of course, followed up rapidly in 1984 with the Apple Mac, which I all remember the adverts for that, with the Big Brother screen and the woman running through the auditorium and throwing a huge hammer at the screen. That was an iconic advert. Over here is the introduction of the MSX computer. So even though the Mac was probably the big news for 1984, there's also the announcement of the MSX. I'm just trying to read that here. There were some of the computers released as well. The Coleco Adam, which was, I loved the look of that machine, but got very bad press because of its unreliability. The Amstrad CPC 464, that is a big deal as well in the UK. But the Spectra Video, it came out in March, or March PCW reviewed it. I remember seeing that review actually. And then, of course, behind that, the MSX came with multiple machines from people like Toshiba and Sharp, and even some cool Pioneer MSX machines, Hitachi, Sony. Yeah, they all make MSX compatible machines. Right. I'm not going to talk about PCs too much. Let's talk about the computers that never made it. So, oh, that's interesting. 1985, Apple drops Jobs and Lisa. So I'm not going to try and read the article, but clearly Steve Jobs at this point is no longer with Apple. But Atari release their ST, which is power without the price, if I remember the catchphrase for their adverts. And it was decent. I had a mate who had one of these at university. I liked it. It was an 8 megahertz 68K machine, so similar speed to the Apple Mac, the original Mac. But it had color and sound. It was probably aimed a little bit more at the home market by the time it got cheap enough. But yeah, and of course down here you can see the Amiga A1000. That was obviously a huge impact machine in terms of its graphics and sound capabilities. Those custom chips made its 7.1 megahertz CPU irrelevant compared to the 8 megahertz in an ST, because the blitter and the copper and the Denise sound chip were, was it Paula? But anyway, these custom chips gave graphics and sound that no other machine at the time could come anywhere near. And although this is 1985, of course, later in 1988, for me anyway, the A500 became affordable, and I had an A500 back in '88. What's not happening here is they are not talking about my Oric. Where is in 1984, or in fact 1983, where is my Oric being listed? Nowhere to be seen, no pictures. Very disappointing, PCW, just joking. Let's move on rapidly. 1986, yes, I remember the Amstrad PC 512, and that is obviously now bringing PCs to the mass market in the UK. Compaq, I remember, always led the way with really high power machines. So the 386 now in a Compaq, probably an 8 megahertz one, but that was immensely powerful. Yeah, but I was never really a PC fan. I was not a PC fan in those days at all. I wouldn't say I'm a fan even now, but it just wasn't something that interested me. Of course, when the Mac 2 came out, I think that really like upped the ante for Apple. But Archimedes, I mean, if we say that the classic Mac was the future, the Archimedes is truly the future. So, I mean, that's what's sitting in this Samsung here, essentially the chip that was designed originally by the folks at Acorn Research, or Acorn anyway, when the ARM company designed that first RISC chip, the ARM1, and then it became the go-to processor for mobile phones and other portable devices. And then, oh yeah, of course. So of course, Steve Jobs, when he left Apple, he didn't just sit around doing nothing. I think he bought all of, or most of, Pixar for a start, so made a lot of money there. But also the next company he formed with that wonderful cubic foot of compute in a box, and that all black sort of brand. Looked amazing. It was 68030. In fact, I can read it here. 68030 Motorola chip at 25 megahertz with a coprocessor, and with a Motorola DSP chip as well. Interesting thing about this machine, of course, is that it was so legend has it, or allegedly was the machine that Tim Berners-Lee used at his time doing research and invented the World Wide Web with that. Over here in 1989, we're moving from 386 to 486. So here we are now in 1989, and we're gone from the original 8086 in 1978 to already into the 486. So we've been through 4 generations. The 186 wasn't very long lived, I don't think, but the 886, 286, 386, and now we're into the 486, which was hugely impressive CPU considering its backward compatibility. Wasn't necessarily as cool in my view as a 68040, but still, when you think about the compatibility that Intel had to make sure was there for all the legacy software, I think that was part of what won them the battle in the long run against Motorola's chips. Windows 3.11, not 3.11, 3.1. Gosh, yes. And here it starts becoming quite PC focused, I would say, because the sort of menagerie of microcomputers, there's Sinclair, the Amstrads, the Ataris, the Commodores, I mean, they're all being replaced by standardized machines, essentially around the PC architecture. So as we move forward now, I'm now at university by this time, and I've still got my Amiga A500, and it's almost keeping up with, you know, a 386 level machine, but with VGA and Sound Blaster and AdLib cards, I could see the writing was on the wall. So I didn't keep my niche computer like Amiga for very much longer. I think probably by 1995, I had moved across to PC, having owned an Amiga A1200 in the meantime. So Pentium's coming in now. I remember at work when people were first trying out the Pentiums. Yeah, I mean, they were very impressive at the time. And then 1994, probably what I'm going to do is stop at 1996. So let's go back 30 years as we're in 2026. PowerPC, another architecture from IBM this time, and RISC PC. It says here Cambridge-based Acorn challenged Apple's Power Mac with the RISC PC 600. I mean, these things didn't work out because the operating system, the applications, is what people wanted. It wasn't so much the hardware underneath. Then going on to 95, of course, we had Windows 95, and honestly, it was actually okay. I think this is when I decided I'm going to get a PC. For me, anyway, I thought it was fine. And then let's finish in 1996. This is big news, right? So at university, you know, Sun Microsystems that's what we had, you know, Sun Spark stations in our university lab. That was back in 92. By 96, I think that looks like, so yeah, Sun and Oracle merged or got bought. I can't remember. I don't want to read this article. Let's have a look. Well, I do. I need to read it. Sun's launch of Java. My God, that's 30 years ago. And I'm Oric Mad. Oracle chief Larry Ellison, doing well still, even to this day, promoting the network computer. Well, we know that Sun got bought by Oracle anyway, so that's the thing. And some names from the past. Scott McNeely. He might not have remembered his name if I hadn't read it just now. But Larry Ellison, of course, is still a big character. Yeah, that's 1996. I think I'll stop there. There are some more interesting things around. I remember the MX coming out in 97. And this is kind of a precursor to knowing that we need accelerated PCs need acceleration. So of course we're going to have GPUs and all sorts of things coming in afterwards. But I think I'm gonna stop here. But anyway, that was a little bit of a blast from the past. I've just spent 20 minutes talking about it, so I don't think anybody's going to get as far as this place in the video. But if you do, I hope you found that interesting. And yeah, thanks for listening to my ramblings as I go through all of these years. And I'm going to stop on the year where I first got a computer, which was between 1983, it was the end of 1983, and 1984. This is my kind of start of my computer awareness, really. Still love that cover there, the Zaphod Beeblebrox cover, personal computer world. All right, well, thanks for watching this video if you got this far.